Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I'm going to give you guys an update on what's been happening in Ukraine. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update from one of my sources on the ground and what he's been saying about the Pokrovsk region. But guys, listen, before we get on, can you tap the buttons below and do the like, the subscribe, and hit the bell notification button? Because apparently 40% of my viewers don't subscribe to the channel. And that's okay, guys. Don't worry about it. But let's get on. So let's go to the first thing, ladies and gentlemen, which is going to be the shared map. As always, I want to show you guys how much ground the Russians are taking per day in Ukraine. So just for reference, maybe this is the first time you guys are here. This is the map of Ukraine I use. Obviously, you've got Kiev. You'd have Lviv right somewhere around here. The area I want to focus in on is this key town of Pokrovsk. I've said many times that the key town, the Pokrovsk is a key location. It's a key town. I did have a friend going out there to give me well, not just me, but he was going out there with a film crew. He was going to give me an actual update from the ground. But as I'll come into later, he couldn't go there. Anyway, so this was a situation on the ground on the 13th of last month, so just over a month ago. Also, key town to note here is this one, Valyeka Novosilka. That looks like it's already closed down and it's finished. Right, what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to fast forward, and every time I click this would denote a 24-hour period, and watch how much ground the Russians are taking, and also note how much ground, which is none, the Ukrainians are taking back. So let me just fast forward through this. And when people say to me, when do you think the front line will collapse? My response to them is, what front line? And that is as far as it goes. Obviously, the 14th today, the map will update later on. Remember, this key town of Pokrovsk here, it's a logistical hub. It looks like the Russians have already taken control of this southern road here, although it's not a main supply route. But I believe there's a train line here. Yeah, there's a train line here as well. So this train line that comes in from the south, the Russians have taken control of that, which limits the Ukrainians' extraction capacity. I think what they're going to do is they're going to encircle Pokrovsk, and then they're going to leave this road free. And they'll leave that road free so the Ukrainians can evacuate. Now, this town is key. As I'm told, this is like kind of the last fortress that the Ukrainians have in the east. And it does look like it's going to fall, not a matter of if, but when. The Russians are pushing every day, and every day the Ukrainians are losing ground. Right, let me come off that. So I got an update from my friend like yesterday or maybe the day before, I can't remember. I said to him, I said, okay, when are you going on this Pokrovsk trip? And he said, well, Sean, the Ukrainian military have said that, they're not allowing anyone else into that area until after the 20th of January. Now, the 20th of January, obviously, is the United States inauguration day, where Donald Trump will officially become the president of the United States. Anytime before that, Joe Biden will still have the authority to make decisions, to move forward, and to deploy whatever assets he feels fit. So until the 20th, I would suspect Vladimir Putin will not be planning any big push, any big movements, anything that's going to rock the boat. Why? Because he doesn't want Joe Biden making a rash decision before he leaves office. So right now, I would suspect that from what I've been told that's happening on the ground in Ukraine, the military are not letting anyone in that region, in the region of Pokrovsk, until after the 20th. The fact that Donald Trump is looking for a meeting with Vladimir Putin soon after he's inaugurated, the fact that it does seem like there's a lull in large movements in the east of Ukraine. But ladies and gentlemen, be under absolutely no illusion. Get ready for the storm that is coming after the 20th. Now, an article from, where is it? I'll put all these links in the description. An article from The Independent Ukraine-Russia war latest. Flights cancelled as Kiev strikes southern Russia in major drone and missile strike. This comes as Donald Trump said he is going to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very quickly to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. His comments coincide with NATO chief Mark Rutte's warning that Kiev is not ready to enter peace talks with Moscow. There's going to be no peace in that region. And again, you know I'm going against what everybody else is saying, and I've been going against this for a long time. I can remember when people were saying, "Oh, Donald Trump will have a peace deal within 24 hours before he's even inaugurated." Ladies and gentlemen, it's just not going to happen, and it can't happen, because if you guys can remember from the map I've just shown you, why would the Russians come to any sort of agreement at the moment that would involve them not moving forwards? Right now, the Russians are taking more and more ground. For example, if there was a ceasefire right now, that would mean that the Russians didn't take control of the town or city of Pokrovsk. I say town or city because if it was in Europe, it would be classed as a town, but it's in Ukraine, so it's classed as a city. It doesn't really matter. So why would the Russians take a bad deal when they can have a good deal? Why would the Russians come to any sort of agreement right now when it's not in their interest? And I've said this for the longest time. Nobody's going to be having any meaningful ceasefire agreements until the Russians are, well, it was one of two reasons actually. The first scenario would be that the Russians remove all the troops from Ukraine and return the 2013 borders. Also, the Russians would have to agree to rebuild all the towns, villages, cities, locations, and infrastructure that have been destroyed in this conflict. How likely do we think that is? Not very. The second scenario would be the Russians pushing all the way up to the River Dnipro. And I think this could come very soon after the 20th. Why? Because right now it makes perfect sense that the Russians would be reinforcing their positions, moving logistics in place, moving tanks, trucks, aircraft, retraining conscripts for what would be the word I'm looking for, to be able to conduct raids and surges, which their conscripts just can't do at the moment. So that's what I believe is happening right now. And ladies and gentlemen, being under no illusion, after the 20th, be prepared for the storm that is coming. So there's going to be no peace talks or no real meaningful peace negotiations until the Russians are, in the most likely scenario, would be the Russians make it up to the River Dnipro. And that could happen within days, not months. There's really, apart from Pokrovsk, there's nothing in the way now to stop the Russians pushing all the way up to the Dnipro and then just trickling up north. And then that would give them control of the towns of... And then Russia would want to take control of the towns of Dnipro, Kremenchuk, what else have we got? And then Kiev, I guess. And that would give Putin, that would practically give Putin the whole of Ukraine, certainly the industrial bases, the financial bases, and the cultural bases of Ukraine. Then there would only be Lviv. Yeah, there would only be Lviv left, really. So what we could see very soon before the end of the month is a lightning surge forward by the Russians getting up to the River Dnipro. Now, this also comes off the back of the, if you live in the United Kingdom at the moment, you'll know that we are really struggling with gas storage. A couple of days ago, it came out on mainstream media that we only have 7 days gas left. And I've been warning about this for such a long time. I've been saying, okay, ladies and gentlemen, listen. The Ukrainian power grid has been smashed. The Ukrainian power infrastructure, it's been targeted by the Russians, which means that they're going to need to import their energy from somewhere. And by energy, I mean gas and electricity. Now, if we already have a finite supply in Europe, where is that going to come from? Okay, so we have got another country supporting Ukraine. What if we have a cold snap like we have now? Then all these countries are trying to draw from resources that are already limited. And now, as an article comes out, the future of Russian gas is looking bleak. Ukraine has turned off the gas supply now. So we had the Nord Stream that is stopped working now. You guys think about that. You guys can think of that what you want, but the reality is, whoever did it, it doesn't really matter because it's definitely stopped. The future of Russian gas is looking bleak now, because the Ukrainians have turned the tap off to Russian gas because apparently there was Russian gas transiting through Ukraine into Europe. I don't know how that was a thing. I don't know how that was still happening, but it was. Now that's been stopped, and it's looking like the Europeans are going to turn off all imports of Russian gas. Again, the only people this hurts, these are self-inflicted wounds, because this is not going to affect the Russians, because the Russians will be able to sell that gas. They, rather than going west, they're going to go east, and energy is all, you can always sell energy. Somebody will always buy energy. So yeah, the only people that's going to affect is the Western world. It's going to affect Europe. It's going to affect especially the United Kingdom, because like I said, our gas supplies are very low at the moment. And I get it, what people are saying. Oh, but Sean, that's the emergency supply that will get resupplied after yada yada yada. And I say, okay, that's fine. Show me where it's getting resupplied from, because Germany needs gas, Austria needs gas, I think is it Slovakia as well that needs gas. 3 countries there that have just had their gas turned off. You've also got Ukraine that needs gas and electricity. So now we've got 4 countries who are in extra need of energy. So where are we going to get these resources from? The magic gas fairy? Like, there isn't enough resources to go around. So obviously, when demand goes up and supply comes down, price goes up. Likewise, the opposite. When supply goes up and demand goes down, the price comes down. Unfortunately, that is the world we are living in. Gas. Right now, we are looking like, it does look like we're looking at gas shortages, or at least gas price hikes. This is an interesting one as well that's come out from the captured North Koreans that were operating in Ukraine. It turns out that I'm going to read you this article, and I'll put it in the description of how the North Koreans are being used. Now, I don't think this confirms what I was saying, but we'll go with it. Remember when the North Koreans first got, when the news was out that the North Koreans were going to be operating in alongside the Russians? A couple of options I gave. I said, right, okay, they're going to either be used as kept as a unit, as a whole, and then they're going to be given a specific area of responsibility. That's going to be, because of the language barrier. And then I said the other location they could be used in, they could be tested in the Kursk region that the Ukrainians have taken from the Russians. Turns out it was the latter. The Russians tested the North Koreans in the Kursk area, and it wasn't good for anyone. It wasn't good for the North Koreans. It wasn't good for the Russians. There was a lot of bad things happening. Anyway, what I said is, I think these people, the North Koreans, are going to be used in with drones. I said they're going to be used to either refurbish, reconstruct, operate drones behind the front line, because I didn't see their competency on the front line. Turns out, I think the Russians are using them like that, but not what you think. So, North Korean diary reveals use of horrific tactic in Ukraine war. So there's a little picture here. I'll probably put that in the thumbnail as well. The last written notes of a North Korean soldier has revealed how North Korean troops are being used as bait to lure out and shoot down Ukrainian drones. So they are being used with drones. I still think that's where they're going to go, guys. I do still think they're going to be used with some sort of behind the front line and being used as drones. But it turns out the Russians are using these guys as bait. The picture, it's dark. So the Russians are using the North Koreans to run out. When the drone spots the North Koreans, the Russians, as I assume, would be trying to take that drone down. That is not such a controversial tactic. In the British military, you have your section battle drills, which would be prepare for, well, I've not done this for a while, prepare for combat, reaction to effective enemy fire, locating the enemy. Now, if you can't locate the enemy, it's literally a part of the British tactics. You send a runner out to try and draw enemy fire, and then you can locate the enemy. So it's kind of not that much of a brutal tactic. although it kind of does give it a new dimension when you have to send somebody out to try and lure out the drones to attack them. You know, you can only imagine what these North Koreans are going through. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to keep this short today. That is kind of, yeah, the jux of this video is get ready for the storm that is coming after the 20th. We've got the Ukrainian military saying they're not having any movements now until after the 20th. Obviously, those guys in the Ukrainian military are expecting something to happen after Trump's inauguration. We've got Trump saying he's going to be going over to meet or meeting Vladimir Putin wherever to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine can't be ended until, at a bare minimum, the Russians are up to the river Dnipro. And then that kind of doesn't look like an end to the war. That looks like a Russian win. Anyway, guys, listen, I'm going to mag to grid, and I'll get you guys another video later.